Good evening. Thank you for coming to the special called Public Facilities Arts and Culture meeting regarding Metro Arts. I am Joy Stiles. I am the chair of this committee and also the council member for District 32. Just to do some house cleaning items, when you are at the microphone at the very end, if you will press the button on your right when it turns green, you're able to speak. If you don't press that button, we won't be able to hear your valuable pieces of information. So the reason why we're here tonight, this is the second special called meeting by this committee. The first was in December. As many of you know, there have been several issues that have come up regarding Metro Arts and the distribution of funds this past summer. And so we wanted to take a chance to clarify any confusion and offer some transparency on the part of the city for what has been going on. There on the table, we do have a grants contract timeline. So I just wanted to do a quick summary just so we can be caught up to this point and get started. Beginning in August, where the grants contract template was sent to legal to be edited and to account for two different funding sources. In September, a legal review was completed. On the 6th, on the 11th, contracts were distributed for signatures to grantees, and contracts needed to be signed by organizations, board chairs, and executive officers. In October, Metro Finance required a list of possible expenses before approving allocations. Then Finance received a grant contract and required contracts to be pulled and revised based on the language Metro Legal provided. Continuing in October, the contract was redistributed to legal for language revisions. Metro Finance required a final sign-off on revisions before contracts could be sent. In November, Metro Legal completed the edits to the contract language, and the next day, Metro Finance approved the contracts to be distributed, and then in November, contracts were distributed for signatures to grantees, and contracts needed to be signed by organization, board chairs, and executive officers. By the end of November, contracts were sent for Metro signatures, and 8 Metro signers are required. December 6th, 5 contracts were pending the clerk's approval for completion, and remaining contracts were requiring signatures. So our meeting was in December. As you can see, we are in February. So what I wanted to do tonight, at our last meeting, we heard from Executive Director of Metro Arts, Daniel Singh. We also heard from Executive Director Davey Tecker for the Metro Human Relations Commission. Tonight, I wanted to give a chance so we could hear from Metro Legal's Director, Wally Dietz, to hear his take on how he received information and what took place. And also, we're going to hear from our organizations that have applied for funding to speak to how this funding is important across the board for all programming. And we'll also hear from small organizations and large organizations. Then we will hear from Executive Director Tucker regarding the complaint that was filed by some of the individuals that had not received funding. And we will hear from an individual filmmaker regarding funding. And then we'll have questions and answers. And I'm going to try and keep everyone able to speak for 2 minutes at a time so that way we can hear from as many people as possible. So with that being said, I would like to turn it over to Legal Director Wally Dietz. And I wanted to ask if you could share with us, I know part of the funding debacle was that there was an original vote that was taking equity into consideration, and then a Supreme Court ruling came down saying that race couldn't be included in decisions, but it referred to educational organizations, not arts. So that's seemingly where things started to unravel. And I just wanted to hear from you how that was interpreted by Metro Legal and what was shared to move forward with the commission from there.
Sure, Madam Chair and other council members. It's a pleasure to be here. This has been an extraordinarily challenging situation for all of us. At the outset, I do want to emphasize that where we are right now, the mayor has expressed his very strong opinion that we should all be working to get to the bottom of whatever issues are there and get this money out the door. I speak with the Director of Finance every day. about this issue, sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes over the weekend. So we are all doing the best we can to try to expedite things. And I think my understanding of what happened, because I was not on the front line of this, my understanding of what happened is that at the July meeting, there were some decisions made where race was taken in as an express factor that we believed was unconstitutional. And the first communication was about the Harvard case and the UNC case because those cases were top of mind. But the Supreme Court, since 1989, has made it clear what the boundaries are on affirmative action. And there's a body of law that goes from 1989 to about 2006 that define the rules on when you can use affirmative action. So the law we're relying on really goes back that far. It's not just what the Supreme Court did last spring in the Harvard case and the University of North Carolina case. Those cases were limited to education. Most legal scholars believe that it will have some application in other arenas as well. That's what our outside counsel believes, Griffin and Strong out of Atlanta, who we use for guidance on this. So, it may not have been a fulsome explanation, but the Harvard case came down. It made it clear the Supreme Court was going maybe even farther to the side of eliminating affirmative action as a viable path. We believed that the actions in July were unconstitutional. So what we did was we advised the commission that was our view, that they needed to redo that vote. Metro Legal never, before, during, or after that discussion, has expressed a preference whether or not grants go to the legacy organizations, the larger arts organizations that have historically been funded significantly by the Arts Commission, or whether they go to smaller recipients. We have no opinion on that. That is not our call. It is up to the commission to decide that and how they want to promote equity in the grants and the awards. So we have never once advised that you need to give grants to the larger organizations as opposed to the smaller ones. We do have some concerns about awards that go to individuals, but we have yet to finalize all of that analysis. So we asked the commission to start over and to go through this without a clear preference based on race. We said you need to use a race-neutral approach to your scoring system. We did advise them that there were things they could do that would be lawful in our opinion. Prioritize awards based on size of the recipient, zip codes, areas where if the Arts Commission determined that certain areas were underserved by the Arts Commission. There were things we were trying to do to help the commission and the director achieve the goals that were stated. We did all that. We also strongly advised the Arts Commission and the executive director to engage Griffin and Strong to do a disparity study where that study could document historical discrimination in the awards of grants. Griffin and Strong has done exactly that for Metro procurement in the construction fields. And based on that disparity study, Metro procurement is able to take race into account to some degree as a factor in awarding contracts. But the Supreme Court and all the courts that have followed these decisions since 1989 say if you do not have that disparity study, you cannot use race as a factor. And then once you have the disparity study, if the study proves that there is a history of discrimination in the awards of art grants historically, then you can make these scoring additions on the basis of race, but it must be narrowly tailored to address the discrimination that was proven in the disparity study. So there are ways to get there, but without that disparity study, it's our opinion that the commission cannot use race as a factor. The price of that study is $106,000. We've made that available. We've also made available to the commission and I believe to you, Madam Chair, the Griffin and Strong opinion, which supports our opinion. Griffin and Strong is a law firm in Atlanta. This is their expertise. They have advised Metro for years on how to establish DEI programs that are compliant with the law. We rely on them as our outside expert. They came in and looked at this exact situation with the Arts Commission in that July meeting, and they agreed with us. They agreed that that was unlawful and that the whole award system coming out of July needed to be done. So we're sorry. We're sorry about all of that, but and the confusion that's arisen in all this, but we never advised how the commission should do its job other than this race-based scoring that was used. That was the only thing we did. Metro Legal is here to support our clients in their policy objectives. And so if the Arts Commission wants to move a different direction with awards and go a different direction to prioritize smaller artists who have historically been left out of the Metro Arts Commission awards process, that is their job. That's up to them. And we will do whatever we can to support them in that objective. So we regret that there's been so much confusion here. There is one thing I would like to address too, which I heard from your last meeting with Director Singh. Director Singh indicated that Metro Legal advised him not to talk to anybody about any of this. I don't believe that's accurate. I have got 2 emails, and these are the only email communications we have found to Director Singh. One had to do with a request from a Brooklyn, New York art publication about the decision at the August meeting to reverse the grant awards in July. And the suggestion was essentially, if you want to comment, we suggest you stay out of the big versus little artist fight, because that was unresolved at the time. Our opinion was it didn't make sense to do that. The other request we received from Director Singh was whether or not he should comment on the complaint that was filed with Director Tucker's organization, the Metro Human Rights Commission. And we said, no, that our advice to our clients, if there's a pending legal case, is not to comment in the media on that complaint. That's the same advice we give everybody. If you're a department of the Metropolitan government and you're sued, we advise our clients not to comment in the media on the pending case. So our advice was plain vanilla. We suggest you not comment on that case. To my knowledge, we never advised Director Singh he could not speak to artists. He could not speak to the community at large. If there's evidence of that, I have not been able to find it. I've spoken with my lawyers who were involved at the time. They don't recall giving that advice. So I wanted to clear the record on that.
Thank you very much, Director Dietz. I do want to acknowledge Vice Chair Terry Vo is here, and also Councilmember Ewing. They're both members of the Public Facilities Arts and Culture meeting. And I want to thank all of the commissioners that I see in the room right now. Thank you so much. You've had a very long day today. You had an earlier meeting and you're here again to talk about this work. So thank you for your commitment. Before I ask the two of you, if you have any questions for Director Dietz, I have a couple. So one of the things that came up at the meeting in December was Commissioner Cheek shared with us that he had reached out to you after the July meeting and asked your opinion of the vote that had been conducted. Is that regular to have commissioners call you personally to ask your opinion on what's happening on a commission?
It happens all the time. I have commissioners call me all the time about things that are coming up. Commissioners know that they can reach out to Metro Legal one-on-one and discuss agenda matters without it violating the Open Meetings Act. It happens all the time. It was the first time I believe that I heard from Mr. Cheek about anything related to his service on the Arts Commission, but there was nothing unusual about that call. I talk to board members on boards and commissions all over Metro. I think probably in the last year, I don't remember a week where that didn't happen at least once or twice.
Thank you very much for that. And my next question is, the previous representation for Metro Arts was Tessa Ortiz. So is it, for the commissioners that do reach out to you and have questions, are they then circumventing their assigned Metro legal lawyer? Are you pointing them back, or are you answering their questions, which seems that may be confusing, so I just want to clear that up.
Okay. Tessa started, her first meeting was April. Her first meeting on her own was July. The team leader on that team representing the Arts Commission is Macy Amos. She left on paternity leave and was not at the July meeting. Tessa was filling in for her first time. And so because we were in this transition, I was happy to talk to Director Cheek about his concerns. As I recall, it was a very brief conversation. He said, I've got concerns about how we awarded the grants, how we went about the awards. I think you should look into it. And as I recall, I think I said something to the effect of, thank you for bringing it to our attention, we will. I'm not sure the conversation lasted more than 60 seconds. It was very brief.
And how long between that conversation and your reaching out to Griffin and Strong did they give you an opinion on how to respond?
That's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies, did you have any questions for Director Dietz at this time?
I just had one quick question. Thank you so much, Director Dietz, for joining us. I was just wondering, with the disparity study, after you all, suggested that, was that needed and required? I just wanted to clarify, when it was offered, was that needed for the funds to be dispersed?
Well, no, but it was needed if the commission wanted to disperse funds using race as a factor.
Right,
But with the August vote, and part of what went into that vote, to my understanding, is that the historic legacy agencies expressed their very strong disapproval of what had happened in July. And so they were very concerned because they had started to make budgets based on the assumption that funding would continue at historic levels. I wasn't involved in that, but I heard secondhand that that was happening. So the disparity study is not needed to get funds out the door based on the August awards. But if the commission at any point in time wants to go back to the formulas used in July, the disparity study is required.
great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Dietz. My question relates to the advice given about the July vote. Once you gave that advice, I'm assuming that you were not at all involved in how they formulated their August scorecard to create a vote.
I was not. I don't know that Tessa was, or perhaps Laura Fox, but I was not. I believe, I I don't want to comment on exactly what role they played in the August scoring. I do want to emphasize again that we had no preference whether the awards went to smaller artists, nonprofits, or to the larger institutional ones that historically receive funds. We had no preference on that. But whether or not we reviewed the scorecards, I don't know.
Thank you.
I think I have one last question before we move on. In regards to Griffin and Strong's interpretation of the ruling from the Supreme Court, how does that, if we're using that for Metro Arts in their funding process, how does that also affect us in any way in other departments? Does that become widespread? Is it just focused here?
We are in discussions with them about giving us advice on Metro-wide application of their advice. So that is in progress. It's not ready yet, but that's something that we will be working with them to receive. We don't want to overreact, but we also want to be lawful. So, so there are things that they have advised us that we can do for our DEI initiatives in the past. And we're sticking with those until they advise us that we need to shift away from those also. And I don't know that they will. I'm not predicting that at all, so please don't misunderstand that. But we do rely on them as subject matter experts. They have done a really great job for us for a very long time. And a lot of what you see in DEI initiatives in Metro is based on advice that they have given Metro Legal and Metro departments.
So is it a fair guess that possibly if it isn't applicable Metro-wide, that race could potentially be used in a funding process for the future for Metro Arts since they're still a part of Metro Arts?
No, I think that law is clear, and that law has been clear since at least the early 2000s, when the last of a series of Supreme Court cases came down on affirmative action. The first one was 1989. The last one in the series was, I believe, 2006, but that law is baked. It is not going to change, certainly not with the current U.S. Supreme Court. That law is not going to open the door to affirmative action and scoring for Arts Commission grants. It just is, it's not going to happen. And so what we want to be careful to do is to make sure that in every activity at Metro, we are complying with the law. We believe we are, but outside of the procurement process for the scoring on construction projects for Metro, I'm not aware of any process at any board and commission or any agency that can use race as a scoring factor to give financial awards.
Okay, and I had heard in my conversations throughout the midst of this that the disparity study that's being used that's applicable to construction is not necessarily apples to apples with arts. So potentially we would be able to do another disparity study that could be more specific to the work that's being done
That
artistically.
Yes, 100%. That is our recommendation. And I understand that Director Singh has questions about whether arts can tag along to that disparity study for construction projects. And the answer is probably, but it would be limited to some art feature of a large Metro construction project or some large Metro construction project. So that's not going to happen very often. But for the year-to-year grants that the Arts Commission gives and that they want to give, that disparity study will not work. And Griffin and Strong has said that it will not work. That what the Arts Commission needs is a targeted disparity study based on the historical awards of grants from Metro Arts Commission.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the information that you've given, and I think it's very clarifying. With that, I'm going to let you take a breather. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our artistic director for Nashville Ballet. If you could please share for all of the individuals, the artists that are here with arts organizations, how the funding impacts your programming. I think there's been confusion for that for a lot of people, and I don't think it's necessarily infighting. I think it's about everyone is getting funding, and that's going to multiple programs that impact everyone throughout the city.
Can everyone hear me? Sorry, this is my first time speaking
Yes.
at one of these. My name is Nick Mulliken. I am the artistic director and CEO of the Nashville Ballet. I've been with the organization now for 9 years. I am really proud of the work that we do here in the city of Nashville. Nashville Ballet receives about $108,000 of funding from the Metro Arts Commission, and in that process, Nashville Ballet is a mission-based organization that is focused on creating, performing, teaching, and promoting dance as an essential and inspiring element of our community. What that means for us is that any dollar that comes into our space goes to serving that mission. And in the last year, Nashville Ballet has been able to perform at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center, at the Martin Center in Sylvan Park. And we have also performed at the Fisher Center at Belmont University, in addition to countless libraries, public spaces, and other areas where we're able to engage our audience and our community for free using our arts programs to help supplement, including apologies. Incredibly nerve-wracking to speak after the lawyer. I apologize for that. Try and make light of the situation a bit. But when we're working in the arts, we're not just talking about creating dance performances. We're talking about opportunities for students to connect different parts of their brains, pathways including literacy with our program for Jump Frog Jump that's performed at the Martin Center for every Head Start program here in Nashville. We had the pleasure of going ahead and putting together a free Nutcracker performance at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center for every Title I school. They were invited to attend one of our performances, and we had over 1,700 students that were able to enjoy our programming for free just this past December. We are incredibly excited to be a part of this community and to be doing work that is, well, hopefully as accessible as possible. But funding like this makes it possible. And so with Nashville Ballet, our funding sources come from 3 different places. We are able to sell tickets, yes, to our performances. That covers about 1/3 of our budget. We serve 2,000 students at the School of Nashville Ballet, and that covers about another 1/3 of our expenses. The other 1/3 of that comes from funding sources like Metro Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, as well as individual and private donors. When we lose the funding from the city, that means that every single one of the programs that I just described, including public performances, community engagement performances, free art access programs, all have to be reviewed. And we don't ever want to, in a space like this, commit to making a cut or to making a change because we feel like that's detrimental to the overall mission of this organization. So if you said to me, Nick, I want to talk about what a dollar-for-dollar loss would mean for Nashville Ballet and what it would mean for our community, I would be unwilling to do so, because I would hate to say that we're going to put our community engagement programs on the chopping block, or we're going to cut a performance, or we're not going to be able to do something. Isabel here is a friend of mine, and we had a chance to be speaking earlier, and I overheard her say, we're going to figure it out. And I'm getting kind of tired of figuring it out, to be quite honest with you, and looking towards that support from the city so that we can continue to provide these free programs, can continue to provide arts to our community. And funding cuts like this mean that the dollars that we're able to multiply for the over 60 full-time employees, the Nashville Ballet employees, the 32 full-time professional ballet dancers that have come to us from around the United States that call Nashville Ballet home, and the other part-time workers, over 100 part-time employees that we have at Nashville Ballet that we also serve the community and the arts, means that every dollar you give us is a dollar multiplied. Is a dollar that we're able to go ahead and commit to our economy and to making sure that artists in this community are paid. And I am incredibly proud of that. And any funding cuts from this mean that you're not just impacting a performance at TPAC. It's not just the loss of a Nutcracker show. It's a loss of a job. It's a loss of a position. It's a loss of another artist in this community having the chance to be able to make their contribution and to be able to share their voice with our community and to make it more rich.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any questions? Okay. Ms. Tipton, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Yes. So my name is Isabel Tipton Crispin, and I am the Executive Managing Director of the Nashville Shakespeare Festival. I'm sure many of you are familiar with our main program, Summer Shakespeare, which has provided professional outdoor theater to thousands of community members for over 35 years. Most Shakespeare festivals across the country required paid entry, but we have committed to providing free admission with a suggested donation since year one. In addition to Summer Shakespeare, we produce indoor shows, tour productions with professional actors into local schools, host free reading sessions at the Nashville Public Library and Room in the Inn, and more. The vast majority of our programs are either highly subsidized or completely free, and we provide free programs to Title I schools or schools demonstrating financial need. Our mission is to entertain and educate with professional theatrical experiences, but our ultimate goal is to tell relevant stories and create empowering learning spaces so every member of our community knows that these stories are for them. Last year, we served nearly 14,000 community members and provided jobs to 95 artists and technicians, 95% of which were local and 45% of which identified as BIPOC. I was asked to speak about the impact of Metro Arts funding to the Nashville Shakespeare Festival, and in short, it's a really big impact. We're considered to be a mid-sized organization by Metro Arts, and our funding from Metro Arts accounts for about 17% of our budget, which is in alignment with the Metro Arts grant guidelines. We received the first half months late, and we don't know if or when the second half will come. It has caused a great deal of anxiety for both this year and next funding cycle. We don't really know how much money to expect, and it has made planning critical programs incredibly difficult. We rely on Metro Arts funding to continue to provide accessible arts experiences in Nashville. When we don't get the funding, it makes it difficult for us to provide stable, well-paying jobs to local artists. In addition to the financial aspect of our Metro Arts funding, I have literally spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours thinking about and working on Metro Arts-related matters over the past few years. The amount of time I have spent going to meetings, volunteering on committees, submitting public comments, filing FOIA requests, listening to and reading meeting minutes, and trying to make sense of this with other members of the arts community is staggering. Take the amount of time I've spent and multiply it by all the artists you see in the room, plus many, many, many others. Now imagine if instead of spending time on Metro Arts business and problems, we invested that time into creating arts and making our different pockets of the community more vibrant and beautiful. Imagine if instead of using Metro Arts staff time preparing for hours-long commission meetings, staff were focused on how to distribute funding more equitably. Imagine if instead of funding out-of-state consultants to fix problems or funding external law firms to investigate HR matters, we spent that money funding the many artists of this city. Imagine funding the arts at 1% of the combined city budget, where both independent artists and organizations of all sizes can be fully funded. And I do want to note, I hear large organizations thrown around a lot, legacy organizations, and there's a lot of them, much like my friend Nick here, doing really excellent work, but there's a lot of small organizations that are also in the mix of that, micro organizations that were also a part of this effort to try to diversify the funding of Metro Arts, organizations that are considered micro, small, and medium that are feeling the hurt of this the most. We need to imagine a better future than this because the way Metro is currently operating cannot continue. As an artist and arts administrator, I dream of making a better and more beautiful world, as corny as that is. We have got to figure out how to make this right. There is a way to do this in an equitable manner that is also clear with the community members as to what they can expect. The dysfunction between Metro Arts, the Metro Arts Commission, Metro Legal, and Metro Finance needs to be resolved for the sake of the arts community. Every day this issue is not being resolved, artists are being harmed. People have already cut programs, cut staff, or not paid themselves, and I know because I've talked to them personally. There needs to be accountability from everyone involved. It isn't just a wrong signature on an invoice or a slip of the tongue during a meeting. It isn't just a momentary pause to distribute funding or a legal decision that doesn't affect anyone. Minimizing the problem and blaming each other during meetings does not fix this issue. This is an urgent and pressing matter. I know that Metro Arts funding is unfortunately a drop in the bucket compared to the total Metro budget, but these amounts of money are not small to us. People's livelihoods are on the line, and we are all watching, so I beg, please find a solution. Speaking for myself, the reason I stay engaged in Metro Arts business, despite how mentally and emotionally draining it has been, is because it's hard for me to stand idly by when a group of employees and consultants I can count on less than one hand are making more money from taxpayer dollars in my annual organizational budget. Even though it's their job to explain this to the people they are serving, I still don't know basic information like how much money the Nashville Shakespeare Festival can expect this year or next. I need to know this information to know how many local artists we can hire and how many programs we can reasonably achieve. Every Metro department involved in this has a responsibility to right this ship. The chaos and dysfunction of how these different departments are interacting is causing irreparable harm to the Nashville arts community. I hope that you will use your power to find a solution that's honest, transparent, and informed by the needs of your constituents. And most importantly, I urge you to consider funding the arts at 1% of the city budget. Your investment in the arts community will multiply many times over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. At this time, Ms. Princella Smith, if you would share with us your experience and what Metro funding means to you.
Okay, is that it? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Yes, my name is Princella Smith. I am a filmmaker. I think I'm the lone filmmaker on this panel. We are storytellers, so I will tell you a story. I'm what's called an indie filmmaker, independent filmmaker. We are some of the most powerful people in the country. You guys actually have, there was a man named Desmond Doss who's buried in Chattanooga, Tennessee. His story was told in a film called Hacksaw Ridge. That is an independent film that grossed over $200 million worldwide. It's an independent film. He's buried in Chattanooga. Now, why is that important? He saved 75 people in World War II without the use of a weapon. I knew nothing about him, and I majored in political science and history. I didn't know who that gentleman was until I saw that film. And that film actually helped inspire me on my film, which is about the Oklahoma City bombing. It's about a blind man named Raymond Washburn who saved 5 people. So literally, I watched that film and sort of patterned my style after it. Raymond was born blind. He is a member of the Yuchi tribe of Native Americans. So imagine when I'm digging into this story, I'm finding out the Yuchis are literally in Oklahoma and in Tennessee. There is a direct tie to this state with this story. I gave the eulogy at Raymond's funeral. The family asked me to give the eulogy, tell his story, be a media spokesperson, and then that was in 2022. And then two weeks ago, I attended the funeral of his widow, Mary Lou. Now, you guys got to imagine my disappointment that I had promised both of them that their stories would be told. I promised them that I would make sure the world knew of their great heroism. Again, a blind man saved 5 people in the Oklahoma City bombing. And had I received the funding that I was told I would receive last year, I could tell you it would have been finished. It's called a short film. It's an animated short film. So it would have been finished. And is it your fault that Mary Lou died? Of course not. But I part of my tears in telling her goodbye was, Mary Lou, I'm gonna do it. I know you didn't get to see it, but I'm going to do it. So let's pivot here a little bit. Like, film is the most powerful form of communication, right? It's good for the climate. Somebody told me, I used to work in politics, and I've worked in ministry. Politics and ministry are kind of interesting, right? Because people feel like they're being lectured to. My dad's a pastor, so y'all can imagine the lectures I got in my house growing up. But somebody told me people do not want to be lectured to, they want to be entertained. And as bad as that may sound to you, what that registered to me was, if I want to change the world, I can put it in some entertainment that's digestive. Where I want to connect this more to Nashville, first of all, I'm not a native here. I'm from Arkansas. I lived in D.C. for a while, but I'm from Arkansas. I came here. I'm one of the many transplants that annoys you natives, running up your rent prices on your properties. But the one thing I noticed is the Tennessee Arts Committee or Arts Community embraced me quickly and completely. In fact, when Mary Lou died, because I'd already been working on Raymond's story, when she died, some artists got together and created a beautiful piece for her that I was able to take to Oklahoma. And I said, hey, she and Raymond had a whole fan club here. The connection to Oklahoma and Tennessee is amazing. And I've even been asked to sit on some other committees of big organizations like TPAC because they said, we want to know how the independent artist is. We want to get down to where you are. I can tell you, I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about these funds going to small. I'm small. I'm the small. Okay. So I pay people to do. I pay the animators. I pay them out of my funds, contractors. Just little. I'm not taking a salary. I'm trying to get this done. Right. I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. I'm not going to buy Chipotle with with these funds. The money is going to the art, right? So for example, if I get the grant that I applied for this year, and if we somehow get the remaining funds that we were promised last year, that is literally it, and this film is done. I'm gonna bring it home to Nashville. Nashville has one of the top film festivals in the country. I don't know if y'all knew that. People come from all over the world to get into the Nashville Film Festival. Nashville did a great job making itself an Oscar qualifying film festival, I think just like a few years ago. It has not always been Oscar qualifying. Why is this important? Because nobody, Princella Smith, who I'm not Meryl Streep, I'm not some big name producer, I can enter my film into the Nashville Film Festival. I can win that short film competition, and I can literally submit to the Academy my film to be considered for Best Animated Short Film. Now, I sound like I'm dreaming, but I told y'all at the last city council meeting, I got an Emmy nomination on a shoestring budget. If I'm funded, I'm going to win an Oscar. and this story is strong, and it is fantastic. As far as directly about the money, that money to a short film, like, a bigger organization, I'm not knocking the bigger organizations, but they have tiers, right? You're paying staff, you're paying this, you got donor pools, for me, all of it's going to the artist, right? I literally have someone right now speaking to a very big name artist who lives in Nashville, who's from Oklahoma, to come on board my film and be an executive producer and voice a role. And do you know how much she'll do it for? Because I'm small, she'll do it for $5,000. So I'm trying to put that in perspective for you, that me getting a grant, I'm flipping that $5,000 into an Oscar. And in the credits of that film is Metro Arts, City of Nashville. The credits of my artists and my actors, they're Nashville actors. All but 2 of them are Tennessee-based. This is special thanks to whoever y'all want to put in the special thanks, right? This is a Nashville production where I recorded the voiceovers, and the music was in a Nashville studio in East Nashville. Tyler Michael Smith is the son of the great Michael W. Smith. He did my music. This is a Nashville production. So I guess I'm taking a little time here, but I want you to understand, like, that type of funding to me, that's my project. Like, again, Princella is not buying Chipotle with this money. I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding. Okay, so the last point is, I told you my dad's a preacher, so I'm going to be a little preachy on you. My film is titled Walk in the Light, okay? And how we set it up is Raymond is telling this story to his granddaughter, and he's simultaneously teaching her how to lead with the light of her heart, because she says, Grandpa, how did you do this? And your eyes don't work. And he says, the love in your heart illuminates the darkness. So that's how you lead with the light of your heart. We are in such a political climate right now. National politics is affecting local, because these big rhetoric talking points I keep hearing are affecting us here, and we're local. We're having race fights and I'm sorry, I can't say certain things because I'm not trying to be political, but we're doing things that on the local, we should be peer to peer. We should be here to here. We should be heart to heart. Film like this reminds us of why we're all together. This film is giving voice to the disabled community, Native Americans, Black people, young women, and first responders, because I'm able to highlight 2 firefighters who did rescues of Raymond's friends. So when you do something like a film, it's not lecturing you, like kind of like it sounds like I'm doing right now. I can present something in a form of entertainment and really actually impact the world with the light. Now, y'all can be a part of this or not, but I'm gonna get that Oscar, and I would like to say your name in my speech. That's it.
Thank you very much, Princella. Thank you. I appreciate all of the organizations and Princella for sharing Alicia, okay. Okay, we have one more person, Alicia, correct? Okay.
Hello. Hey, team. How y'all doing? I'm Elishaba Israel Morozic, and I have the pleasure of being here as an artist individually and as a small organization. I'm the president of the North Nashville Arts Coalition, which focuses on supporting artists of color in North Nashville. We pay artists to do community engagement work with the North Nashville neighborhood and beyond, bringing in youth, bringing in artists that look like the people in the neighborhood to do creative activities with them. We do work in schools. We also support those working artists by helping them with things like the Thrive application, showing them how to get into different spaces with their art and grow their creative careers. As a personal artist, Metro Arts funding I've received in the past. I've received Thrive grants. I've received a public art commission from Metro Arts. And those amounts of money, small as they may be to, a $1 billion budget that we have, allowed me to be able to elevate from, just doing art as a secondary thing to my main job, to being able to step into a sphere of being able to call myself a public artist. Like, I have a public artist things on my resume that will take me to the next steps in my career. I can now apply for big commission, big budget works of public art. I have the portfolio to do that, but without being able to get funding in an amount that's more than $4,000 or $5,000, I was able to then elevate that up and do a project that I had dreamed of, but I was never been able to do without getting that money. And that money is life-changing for artists who gotta pay, who gets nickel and dime not only by everyday people not valuing arts as a service business, which is what we are, but also corporations. They got million and billion dollar budgets and they want to fight us over, pennies on the dollar. So getting support from our taxpayer dollars to help us do work in the community that benefits everybody is so important. On a personal side, I applied for a Thrive grant for a project for a school that's an underserved school to do a set of murals with the young people there to make their school not look like a prison, because that's what it looks like. And they didn't fund any murals. So not only did that stop that school and that community from getting the engagement from my services as an artist, because I choose to be a community artist, by the way, because I enjoy working with the community. I enjoy sharing my knowledge. I enjoy educating. I enjoy bringing people into loving and understanding art and creativity. I enjoy the impact it can have to change somebody's life, to say that, oh my gosh, I can express myself in all of these ways. And I don't have to look like Caravaggio or Michelangelo to do it, And so I choose that work. And that work is woefully underfunded because the impact that the arts have on everybody is major. Otherwise, you wouldn't need art on packaging. You wouldn't need buildings to look beautiful. You wouldn't need all of those things that make your senses pop when you get some artwork that you love, and that's from dance or music or theater or all of those arts. You need them. Human beings would die without art, literally. It's true. That's why prisons look like they do, right? They're not supposed to be beautiful, artistic, things. They're supposed to be blank canvases because they're not there to inspire you. So as an individual artist, not only was a lot lost there from myself being able to do the community work, but as a small organization, it really damaged us. We are artist-led, volunteer-based, started the Jefferson Street Art Crawl in 2015 with just sweat equity. And that was such a successful event. It gave artists who had been gatekept from getting called to be in gallery shows, from having representation in galleries. It got us to the Frist Art Museum so that we were able to have the Murals of North Nashville show in 2019. That allowed myself and a lot of other artists who all started the Jefferson Street Crawl, who were in the crawl, to be able to, like I said, take their careers off. I have a private studio space that I have to pay a lot of money every month for, but I now have a space that I can do corporate projects. I got my first 2 corporate full building commissions last year to do artwork in an entire space for a corporation. And that's just not something that you get in your house, doing it in your studio at your house. You know what I mean? That's something you need space, and you need employees, and you need, the building blocks of a business. So having access to those funds really, really is important. And as an organization, we try to give those skills to the other artists in North Nashville. I want to pass on the things that I've learned so that they can also be able to grow. And that's why I do this work, because I know that my story can't be duplicated in the current climate because the prices are not the same as they were back then. The people don't own the buildings that they did back then to help somebody. And I know I skipped ahead, but my story is that when I wanted to do tattooing, nobody would give me an opportunity except a lady in North Nashville, a local who owned a space, who allowed me to rent without a credit check, without a business plan, just a vision and skills. And she allowed me to be able to start my business with very little money. That's not something most people can do right now. Like if you're an artist and you want to get started right now, I had $3,000. Name me a place you renting for $3,000 and being able to start the business all from scratch with that. So I like to share that knowledge and give people opportunities. I helped about 10 artists with their Thrive applications this year, only to find out that now funds may be in limbo, and all of those projects that they worked out, the people they started connecting with, the communities that they're supposed to help may not be able to get those services, nor that artists be able to realize their vision to bring them to the next levels in their careers. And small organizations like ours who work with specific communities directly on the ground actually get the money into the hands of the people doing the work instead of all of the administrative all around things that people have to pay for. So it's even more important that these funds get into the hands of people in the neighborhoods who are living and doing those things. The last thing I'll just say is art is work. It is supposed to be funded. We're woefully underfunded, and I don't even understand why, because it makes no sense for a city of our size and budget to not have arts at 1% minimum. I mean, there are cities smaller than ours that give copious amounts to the arts, and it shows in how their artists are staying there and thriving. But when you have artists moving away, when you have artists, half the artists that started the crawl with us can't live in North Nashville anymore. So when you have them moving away, when you have them unable to afford rent, when you have them unable to take on projects, last story, we had a young lady who had been a part of the crawl who didn't get paid from a big job that she did on time because they have 30, 90-day payment plans that people can't live off of as individuals. And she had a show opportunity at Vanderbilt, but she couldn't get her work framed. We luckily had a way to help her get the funds from our very small coffers of just individual donations, grants, and in-kind donations to help her cover the costs of framing. Where was she going to go to get that otherwise, So now she's able to have an opportunity that will elevate her career as an artist and bring her to the next level. So it's just, come on, everybody else done said it eloquently. The biggest issue is that there's not enough funding to the arts, period. And if we don't change that immediately, as soon as possible, then we're going to just continue to have these issues. Everybody's going to get hurt, and you're going to lose artists like myself, like everybody here, because we won't be able to stay. We can't continue if we don't get support from our city. Thanks.
Well, thank you for coming up.
Thanks. Sorry, I was
No, it's okay. And you're welcome to stay here at the table. We've had a lot of discussion in regards to funding and making sure that we're funding smaller organizations, BIPOC organizations, the conversation regarding race and making decisions, including that. I know the first round of voting for the commissioners was making things more equitable across the board. It is true, we have underfunded this department for way too long. And as uncomfortable as the place that we're in is right now, I believe the friction that we have is the beginning of change and in the direction that we would like to see. But transition is always rough, and we're feeling it, but it is going to move in a good direction. I just want to inject a little bit of hope because it's been rough. I've been here, I've been talking, I've been listening, and my involvement, this is my second term, and we've had some issues in Metro Arts in the past, and I still feel positive about where we're moving. Given where we've been, I still feel like the outcome of this will be better than it has been, and I think that there is an appetite and there is a commitment from council members to want to make Metro Arts better, because you're right, you're fighting over pennies, and you've been fighting over pennies for too long, and it just creates a nonprofit Hunger Game. That's my personal opinion. And so whatever we can do to undo that, I can tell you I'm committed fully to it. And when I'm committed to something, I usually can get a couple things done. So with that, I would like to bring to the forefront Executive Director Davey Tucker. He is going to be presenting some information from Metro Human Relations Commission regarding the complaint of those artists that were not funded and their concerns.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really appreciate you even hosting this type of a forum, because it helps with transparency in government, which is often needed. A Title VI complaint was filed with us on September 29th. And, well, I'm going to make a brief statement and a couple comments, then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, and then I'll close it out. But we received this Title VI complaint about the allocation of the grants. And at that time, on 10/17, we received an email from Ms. Laura Fox instructing us not to speak with the ED or the chair, because it was their opinion that this did not fall under Title VI. So we were 2 or 3 months of earnestly getting into our investigation. Hopefully, well, I'll say it's finished now. We're in the final compilation of it, and we hope to have it out this week. But a couple things that I want to say that I think may be instructive, not only for this incident, but even for our city as we move forward. Equity does not need more money. Equity is about how you distribute what you have, period. Full stop, nothing else. And I've heard that, and I keep hearing that if you want equity, you need more money. No, if you want equity, you have to take what you have and make a determination through an equity lens on how you're going to distribute that. So even if no more money goes to arts, and if equity is a thing that since 2015, and even before that, but in earnest since 2015, the Arts Commission has moved toward that end. So I think when it gets down to it, yeah, you're going to have this legal, but you're also going to have this philosophical thing too, that I think plays across everything, even down to and including the way we interpret the law. So 2 more things, and I'll be done. What's interesting to me in this is that there has never been this much of a rancor around the distribution of funds. And as you'll see in the report that we put out, as best we can count, almost $62 million since 1978 has been funneled through Metro Arts, and 70% of that has gone to large organizations, which, when you say large organizations, you're saying primarily white-led organizations. So I'm amiss when all of a sudden others are brought to the table, it becomes race-based. And we contend that it was race neutral in that they set it up according to organizational sizes, but they were looking for outcomes. And one of the outcomes that they were looking for was how would it impact those who had traditionally been excluded. And so I think that's where the rub gets in and where the back and forth goes. But to us, it was limited. The December 22 meeting that the commission, the full commission of arts, approved the criteria. The full commission voted in July to do a historic thing. Then there was an executive session that under state law, it's 2 or 3 things, one of which is pending lawsuit or a current lawsuit. And one of the stipulations is that you cannot deliberate in what you're going to do in that meeting. And that's according to the Tennessee law. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. I went to Metro Public Schools. So our ultimate contention is going to be in that it's race neutral all along. And so as we move through, and Ashley's going to share, and I'll come back and make a closing remark if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I'm our Director of Policy and Research at the Metro Human Relations Commission. And so I'll start by saying we anticipate releasing our full report at our commission meeting, which is taking place 1 week from today at 4 p.m. at the Lentz Health Center. And so I wanted to give sort of a preview of what that is going to be, and with that, an invitation to come to our meeting or to watch it on everyone's favorite YouTube channel. It will be 4 o'clock next Monday. So I'm going to go through some sort of high-level things that I want to point out from a handout that I gave many of you individually, and there's more on the table if I missed you. And I'll start by also saying I really appreciate the comments from everybody, and we're talking about the hurt that's been caused by funding not being distributed either in the amounts that we're told or on the timelines that we're told. And so I think where the conversation is right now, some of those things are getting blended together, and what are we actually talking about? And so I want to clearly state, and this will come through as we walk through the handout as well, is that there is a complaint about the amounts of funding that were promised to people, particularly our independent artists and small organizations. And then there's a complaint about the delay of funding. And so I want to be clear that there's sort of 2 different tracks here that we're talking about. So in the handout that you have, the only thing I want to point out here in the background section is that the Thrive Awards were created in 2014 as a way to increase access of public funding for the arts, and they were always to individuals. And so they were created specifically so people would not have to have a 501c3 as a way to eliminate that barrier to receiving public funding. And so I know maybe for folks who are new to figuring out what this process is, it has always been that they do not require a 501c3 since 2014. On pages 2 and 3 of the handout is just kind of the procedure that we've gone through. On page 4, we have a list of the formal interviews, on the record interviews that we've had with commissioners, with some staff members, with some of the contractors, consultants, and with some of the complainants who have been affected by this. We've had many conversations outside of just what's on this list as well to lead to what we're putting out. I'd be remiss if I said our specific complaint is from 6 individuals who were adversely affected by the vote, but in submitting their complaint, I want to make sure I get the numbers right. They had a sign-on letter from 68 other individuals from the arts community who were signing on in support of what the complainants were submitting to us. 32 of those were individuals and artists who were also affected by the different votes. And so the complaint is from 6 individuals, but it is about a systemic issue. and I'll say in the list of people that we conducted interviews with, I was really happy that I had the opportunity to interview the past chair, former Chair Powell, who had been serving for 5 years at the time that she left the Arts Commission, because she was able to give me some of the background about this move toward these efforts to broaden access and to do some of these things, and how long it has taken to get where we are today. And so on page 5 starts a timeline of events, and I'm not going to go line through line here. That would take all night. But some of the things I want to highlight is the public editing process that took place in the fall of 2022 that engaged 15 plus 12, 27 members of the arts community from organizations of all sizes, from our independent artists. That's where the ideas for the changes came from, of people saying what they need and how can we integrate some of these things into Metro Arts, in the scoring, in the grant amounts, in the sort of capacity building assistance that we get from the agency. So all of the changes that were proposed this year came from a combination of research and actual application to the community that we are in. Those were taken to create these changes. Again, all of this is going to be detailed in our report next week, that were approved by the Arts Commission on December 15th, 2022. And so there was, these are recordings that you can go and listen to yourself, right? We have a record of all of this, but at that time, the commission voted 9 in favor, 1 against, and 2 abstentions to increasing the amount of Thrive from $10,000 to $20,000, of creating a tiered structure for how grants are awarded that has a inverse relationship. So the smaller your budget are, the greater your award is of a % of your budget. So it was this very intentional work of how do we provide greater support to more grassroots organizations, to smaller groups, to really increase access. I will say at that time, it seems like a lot of the concerns were over mid-size organizations around a $3 million budget. And so the last page here shows how that budget tier was. So it seemed like a lot of the sort of concerns were around that level of budget when you see at it. And I'll go through that when I get there. So that happened in December. The commission approved those changes. And this just said, this is how we're going to fund things moving forward. There were no applications on the table at that point. People had not applied for grants. It's just, this is how we're going to look to do things as we move forward. In June 20th, thank you, council members, for approving the amendment that provided an additional $2 million to the Metro Arts Commission. And what the amendment says, it's very short. It says funding for cultural support. That doesn't tell you a lot in writing, but what was said on the council floor by the sponsor of the amendment was that we've heard from artists themselves, from the arts community, from staff, that people really want to prioritize Thrive. And so we are doing this $2 million amendment on top of what the mayor proposed for the department to really lean into that commitment to equity as a department. And so that was expressly stated on the council floor. Budget chair wrote in at the time, said this was the number one wish list item that he got. And so that was the discussion at the time in the council, the $2 million for cultural support to support Thrive, to broaden access to people who haven't had it before. In the reality of not having a budget that would fully fund both Thrive and all other organizations, that was when decisions had to be made about what to prioritize. And that was when the commission decided that they were going to lean in and fund an equitable framework that most closely reflected the decisions they made in December. And so the details are in the chart at the last page. And I'll say, I think there's been a lot of stated confusion around what are these scenarios, how are they developed, what does it mean. When we release our report, it'll explain how you interpret a scenario, how you read it. I will say, in interviewing commissioners, it was, I would say some people really sort of leaned into saying this was too hard to understand, whereas others told me there were lots of opportunities to do one-on-ones with staff or with the consultants who were developing these. There were videos that really described them and broke them down. And so I would just say, I think our report certainly clears up any confusion about what the scenarios were, but not everybody was confused by them. We get into 5 days after the commission makes this vote to fully fund the Thrive asks, as well as to prioritize our micro, small, and medium-sized organization. That's when the legal memo came out. That's when there was the request for the closed executive session between Metro Legal and the Arts Commissioners. Director Tucker's already addressed some of that. I'll just add a little flavor. We asked, are there any specific threats of lawsuits to sort of justify the closed session? Nobody's provided us that information. And I would also just say the examples that we've been provided about what requires a disparity study are looking at individuals. And so this is not about the individual application for Thrive or for the organization grants. Those had all been approved based on what we've been told, that there's no concern over equal protection violations, but these were decisions based on the group level. And so that's a question that we sort of still is an outstanding question for us in that. And again, we sort of go into that more in our report. I'm almost done here. So in August, the commissioners come back, they rescind the vote, and I think I'll add, I think a lot of the commissioners, based on what they told me, felt like that's what they needed to do, that they felt that they needed to rescind the vote, based on their understanding of what happened in that closed executive session. And in August, they passed a different scenario. So when you look at the last page here, this just gives a breakdown of what was funded in each time. So in December, again, this is not funding something specifically. This is how we want to do things moving forward. You see, the smaller your organization is, the larger amount of your budget you can ask for. In July, that scenario that was passed most closely reflects that, with a commitment to fund the Thrive Awards at 100% of their request. And then you see in August, the decision was made to fund Thrive only at 50% of its request, and then to maintain, give or take singular dollars, to maintain funding that was provided at the previous year grant. So that's a lot of information. Maybe I just gave you too much, but I think that we've gotten a lot of questions, and we know that there's a lot of new commissioners and a lot of new staff members, and we've talked to a lot of people, and so we very much want to share what we've learned. And so this is a little preview of what we've learned, and if you want to come to our meeting next week, you'll hear even more. So I'm going to pass it back to Davey.
Thank you, Ashley. And again, that was just a short piece, and the report right now, as it stands today, is about 48 pages because we wanted to document without argument our conclusions in this matter. And again, I heard today that there's questions around Thrive, and it's been a program that's been in effect for a decade, that all of a sudden it's a problem. And I think it is the lack of funds to continue at current funding models that are causing the recipient pool to you got to pick which side of the pool you're going to be on. And that's unfortunate. But I do want to thank Director Dietz and his staff for meeting. As part of our duty in Title VI is to meet and to talk about ways to conciliate. I appreciate every time I call him, he gets back with me. We've met, so have Laura, I've met with Kevin, and so we will have what we think should be the way this situation should be handled in our report. But to end this, I think what has to be clear and made clear to us, because we had to come to the council to get outside counsel because there's often Metro conflicts on Metro, and that's what happens when you disagree. But I would say, to no disrespect at all, but that the Metro Legal's opinion is just that. It's an opinion. It's not a conclusion of law. That's made in a court. And so how do you deal with that when you disagree? And that's where we're at now, is that we disagree in the determination that this was race-based, that it was race-neutral. And so even as it goes forward, there's a place in the code where we don't have any enforcement mechanism. So our report, once we throw it out, by intentionality, I would say, the law doesn't give us very much enforcement, but we would hope that this would be a learning experience for the city as a whole. That's why if you look around, efforts at DEI are being clawed back around the country, in this state, and even in this city. We've even had a department within Metro that has disbanded the DEI program and called it Office of People and Culture and moved it somewhere else. This is going on, and if we act as though our heads are in the sand at this pivotal time in Nashville's history, with all this going on, we're going to be the worst for it. If you're for it, then you got to make the tough decisions that change pre-existing paradigms. And that takes courage. And everybody's not going to be happy. If you've been eating out of the trough more than me and I get a chance, which means you don't get to go up one time, then somebody's going to have to be willing to stand and enforce that. So thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Tucker. Thank you very much. I don't want to butcher your last name, so Ashley, thank you for coming as well and sharing.
Batchelder.
Thank you. Thank you for providing this information. I think this is also very helpful, what you've shared. Again, the purpose of tonight is clarification and transparency. So having knowledge, we can make better decisions and we can move forward appropriately. And I know I'm not the only one that wants to see that happen, where we move forward productively and positively, and we support our creative class. We are a creative city. We have greatness here, and we have to make sure that we're supporting everyone. Now that I've made my commercial announcement. Director Singh, our Executive Director of Metro Arts, is here with us this evening, and I just wanted to be sure that we gave you an opportunity after hearing from artists, being able to hear from Director Dietz at our last meeting. We didn't have that opportunity, so wanted to give you an opportunity to speak as well.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the artists. I've mentioned this in the past, that my kids are pandemic babies, and they saw the first Bharatanatyam performance in Nashville. They saw the first Bollywood pop up in Nashville, and so I'm really grateful for the artists who are the lifeblood of the city. I want to say that Metro Arts is a vital asset of the city, gives us the soul to Music City and its city, and so I hope we can live up to that name. Equity is long overdue, decades overdue, depending on which time clock you want to start from. And I think a lot of this will be solved if you all get the 1% ask we've all been asking for in the budget. I'm happy to cooperate with any of the departments with collegiality. I'm here to work with them. I just ask that collegiality be lended to me, you know. And I also want to make a distinction between legal and moral, right? At one point, slavery was legal. At one point, women not voting was legal. At one point, queer people like me not getting married was legal. So there is what's legal and what's moral. And so like, I'm hoping that this body of brilliant minds would help us go towards morality and not just get stuck in legality. I want to point out that the Thrive program has been on our books from 2015, and our current strategic plan calls for an expansion of Thrive every year, starting in 2015. It hasn't expanded since 2015. So it was the last year that the first time, despite making the promise in 2015 strategic planning, the Thrive expanded due to the hard work of our staff, Jonathan Saad and Chuck Beard, who did the outreach work for that. So I want to point out that Thrive has been stagnant for 8 years, and only last year that it grew. We also had a Metro Finance do a comparison study in 2017 that said that we were underfunded. And then we did another one in 2023 that did a independent comparison study and also said that we were underfunded. So I think a lot of the issues we're having is because we're not being funded where we need to be. And then going to the question of the disparity study, like typically when I've worked in other government bodies, when there's something as monumental as a disparity study being put out, there's a call that goes out to the whole of Metro and says, all 55 agencies are going to do this. Do you want to be a part of this? Is there something in your program that might benefit from this so we can all build one study? So that wasn't done, right? And when the study was commissioned and when the commission was renewed, it wasn't, again, we weren't given an opportunity to ride on that study. And I did speak with Attorney Tom Cross and Michelle Lane on November 14th, and they said that the study was not just for construction projects. They said that it was for a main contract and subcontract. It was not limited to just construction. So that's what they told me. Maybe information has changed since then, but in that conversation, both of them said that it was based on a main contractor and a subcontractor, and based on those parameters, they thought there was a way forward for us to use the existing disparity study, not just for construction, but for general arts programming. And maybe information has changed. This is what I was told on November 14th. The other point I want to make is that the decision to open the votes was used, race was used as the reason to open up the votes. But then afterwards, we were told, well, the commissioners had other concerns like large organizations not receiving what they were used to receiving. But that was not the reason given to open the votes, right? Like, so if you're going to open the votes for a reason, then use that reason for the next vote. Don't use one reason to open the votes and then change the decision based on some other factors that you didn't use to open the votes. What else do I want to say? I think we often talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and that's great, and that's trying to fix systems as they are. I think the anti-racism question I would like to ask is like, why are there Title IX schools? Rather than us doing outreach to them, why do Title IX schools exist? That is the anti-racist questions. Like, what is our ecosystem contributing to create a Title IX community school? And that's the solution we should be working towards. And I think that's the anti-racist path we want to move towards in Metro Arts. And that's what I was charged during my interview process, during the meetings we had with the Commission and Committee on Anti-Racism and Equity. I was charged to move in an anti-racist direction. So I'm doing my job as best as I can, as humbly as I can, and moving in the direction of asking why are there Title IX schools and what can Metro Arts do to prevent one from being there in our communities down the road. And everyone has talked about collective responsibility, so I want to echo that, and this is a collective problem. This has been in the making for 23 years. Our funding has been largely flat from 2000 onwards. Multiple EDs have struggled with this. It's not just a problem that I've struggled with. In the time that I've been here, I've had 4 different commission chairs, and if you count acting chair Commissioner Leah Love Dupree, that would be 5 chairs I've had in the 18 months that I've been here. So you can imagine what my management structure and workload looks like. With all that, I want to say that we're here to solve this problem, and I want to be working with our colleagues and work towards the anti-racist path forward, and I want to make sure that we get the money out to the artists as quickly as we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Director Singh. At this point, if there's anyone in the public that has a question that they would like to ask, the 2 microphones at the very end are available as long as you press the button on the right so it turns green so we can actually hear your question. Is there anyone that wants to ask a question or make a comment in any way? And that includes commissioners, not just the general public. Oh, thank you so much, Heather.
Can't resist a microphone. Heather Lefkowitz, Metro Arts Commissioner, and thank you so much for calling this meeting, for inviting us. I wanted to follow up a little bit on our oversight meeting today and let you know that because of some of we were talking about Thrive in that meeting. And so it's my intention at our next oversight meeting to actually present a kind of a history of Thrive and the funding, because I do think there is confusion about that. So I do want to say that I hope that will be helpful, including like some historical information, funding information. I'm sure your report will be helpful for that as well. But just to, I think that would be clarifying for commissioners and for all of us. So that's what I'd like to say.
Can you tell us the date of that next oversight committee meeting?
No.
Okay. But I
I'm
appreciate
hopeful.
you have an agenda already.
Yes, I'm already working on that. I think there's another report that we're waiting for from legal. And so we are just trying to have informational meetings at first, right? So today was an informational meeting, and I believe the next one will be as well. So I'm hoping 2 weeks. That's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. And there will also be a meeting of Metro Arts for next month as well?
That's
That'll be on
correct.
the third Thursday, 12 o'clock?
Well, we are working on the date for that meeting now. Chair Perez is been very sick, like most of Nashville. So we are working to set the date, but we will have a meeting of the full commission in March, and then also oversight and executive committee, all the committees.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm sure I will see you there. Yes, gentleman in the back. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Jones. I am an artist and a, there we go.
Do you want to sit down?
Sure.
You sit down. There you go.
I am an artist and a local arts business owner. I run a picture frame and arts business called Overton Arts in North Nashville. I'm also a board member of the NNAC alongside Alicia. And I'm one of the signers of the original complaint. And I just wanted to clarify, because I think there's been a lot of words going around that, I know a lot of the commissioners. I support a lot of the large organizations. I certainly am I'm a big fan of the ballet. I love the Frist. I think they do great work. But I think that what's really important in society's cultural output is investing in independent artists and enabling, giving artists the means to be able to create the work that they want to create, like Priscilla here was talking about, the work that they want to create without having to take in commercial considerations regarding how they're going to pay rent. Because when you don't have a platform for artists to create work without commercial considerations, you're not creating art, you're creating branding. Because the sort of work that the artists are having to create, by and large, is sponsored by other interests. So I just wanted to say that I think that it's really important. The most impactful way to invest in the cultural impact and the cultural output of the city of Nashville is to invest in grassroots organizations and independent artists. But I also want to say that in signing on to this and pushing for those causes, that's not to say that that we shouldn't be supporting large organizations, and it's not to say that we shouldn't be creating large institutions and supporting those as well, because I think that they have a place. I think that what's really difficult with this situation is that whenever you have to compete for funds, larger organizations with lots of employees and a large operating budget can afford to put together really strong grants in a way that independent artists don't have the resources to do. And that doesn't mean that the work that they do isn't as valuable. It means that they're going to struggle in any system where they're forced to compete with larger organizations who have better means. So I just wanted to repeat the calls that we've had from multiple sides. And I've met with a bunch of commissioners through this. I've met with people from large organizations, independent artists and small organizations and local council members. And I've been really heartened by how many people support 1% for the arts. I think I want to echo those calls, but I also want to emphasize the importance of making sure that any funds are not just put into one kitty where everybody is having to compete against each other, because I think that the way that these groups work is fundamentally different from each other, and they both need to be competing for funds separately. And so I'd like to just make a on the record statement that I think that 1% for the arts is great, but it also needs to be split in different pools to protect funding for independent artists and small organizations as well as large organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your perspective. Is there anyone else? Oh, Heather's coming back.
Hello, I'm back. The board meeting for March is March the 28th. That will be March the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Last call. Okay, to my colleagues, are there any questions that you have for any of our guests this evening before we go? Yes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you to everyone for sharing tonight. I think it's so important to hear all perspectives. I do want to clarify, I think everyone wants to know as well, is what is holding up the funding and when are the artists going to be paid? Can someone please explain that so we can have some clarity or understanding, or what is the holdup?
I echo that.
So to that, I guess, Heather's back.
I can share what was shared in the Oversight Committee, and I'm happy for anyone else who wants to talk as well. But today we received an overview from Director Crumbo on the finance. As we know, there's an audit that is currently taking place. He indicated that would be done in March. The formation of the Oversight Committee was asked for because of the availability of the $2 million and the opinion of legal and finance that there were conditions that were concerning. And so this Oversight Commission was formed. We received the update today. They have pledged to help us and work with us in terms of releasing the funds as soon as possible. However, at this point, there seems to be some concern that there might be a deficit. So if indeed we are running a deficit for this fiscal year, then there would need to be a corrective plan, as they defined it, in order to think about how those funds will be released. So that is my understanding, and I'm happy to take a follow-up if you have one.
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to have an understanding, because based on the, revote and the allocation, and if the Metro Council did give the $2 million, so can y'all clarify where is the deficit coming from if $2 million was already allocated? So if y'all can clarify what has actually been dispersed and what is still remaining and outstanding, I think that would help everyone.
So I can tell you what has been dispersed. in terms of thinking about where we are, our committee has requested more detailed financial statements in order to understand like where we are. So we have not seen those yet. But according to the data that we were shared, I believe in the January meeting, which remains current, that the operating grant, all operating grant applicants were funded at 50%, and so they have received those allocations as of January. And then, of course, Thrive applicants were funded after the revote at 50% of the original allocation. So that is what has gone out. Essentially, I guess you could say half of, everything has gone out. And so with these additional funds, we need to know more information about the budget as a whole, and we need to see more detailed financial statements to understand where we are in the budget, and that's what we've asked for, and that is what is being worked on.
Okay, I am not trying to put you on the spot. I know
do
this
it.
is going to be an uncomfortable question. I'm just trying to understand. With the $2 million that the previous council approved, I'm struggling to understand how the $2 million could be conflated with operational budget for Metro Arts and become what sounds like a potential solution to a deficit. That makes no sense to me. So if you have any clarifying information, that would be wonderful.
I do not have any clarifying information. That is what we have been told, and here comes someone else. Great. Yes, that is what we have been told, that these funds, even though that they were designated for a specific purpose, that if we are in deficit territory and our operating budget has been overspent, that we must resolve that in order to get these funds out to artists. I wish I could be more clear. Perhaps Commissioner Cheek can provide.
If I could speak, what we were informed today by the finance director is that the Arts Commission is responsible for its own accounting, including procurement. In some ways, it's not a complete standalone budget, but we're responsible for our budget. Part of the budget is the grants. And today we learned for the first time that there is a budget deficit. We have overspent our budget, and my notes indicate that it was in consultants and independent contractors. This is preliminary information. We don't have all the details. But that there is enough money that's been overspent where the finance director wants to look into it with other people that can count, like me, and see exactly how much money was overspent and what needs to be done in order to make sure that, obviously, government can't operate at a deficit. So if there's not enough money, it's going to reduce whatever is left in our budget. And so we'll either have to lay off staff, not make grants. There's going to have to be some sort of decision. So as I understand things, we need to get more information to find out exactly what the deficit is and how it's going to impact the rest of our budget for the rest of the year. So the answer to your question is that, yes, it looks like it could impact grants that go out to nonprofits and Thrive recipients.
Thank you.
You're getting a chorus of commissioners here.
Commissioner Jester, go ahead.
So something that was mentioned today by Mr. Crumbo that I hadn't heard yet is just that there was apparently some sort of disparity in the amount of money that was actually granted and then the $2 million that we have sitting there now. And according to Mr. Crumbo, all of the bona fide contracts that were out there at this point have been paid. So I don't think he's looking at that $2 million as money that's still out there for contracts. And I think that's maybe why there's permission to potentially use it to help bring our budget back into not deficit. Somehow there's also been an understanding to the arts community that that $2 million will be there to fund the other half of grants, but there aren't contracts there, according to Kevin Crumbo, for that other $2 million. Those would have to go out through a contract process again somehow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jester. Director Dietz?
Thank you, Madam Chair, again, and Vice Chair. On this question, the contracts that Metro Legal prepared last fall that have gone out and been signed and funded, those contracts were for 50% of the expected or hoped for funding. So when Director Crumbo said those contracts are fully funded, that is true, but make no mistake, those contracts were for 50% of what the Arts Commission hoped to get out over the course of the year.
Thank you for that. Okay. So there's an expectation then that there would be a second wave of contracts that would then disperse the remaining funds that were promised. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's right. The way the budget amendment was written, the $2 million in additional funding was contingent on the Director of Finance determining that the Metro budget halfway through this fiscal year, as of 12/31/2023, Metro budget was in a surplus situation. That determination was made this month, that as of 12/31/2023, the Metro budget had a surplus, and therefore that triggered the opportunity to release the $2 million. The Director of Finance, and I'm sure he will come back and speak for himself or supply you correspondence or whatever. But he has concerns that are multifold, one of which is whether or not if he releases the $2 million to go to these arts recipients, will the Arts Commission be able to keep its doors open through June 30th? He's not sure. And so he is fast-tracking that financial analysis. I'm not the finance director. I talk to him every day about this. He's concerned that this deficit would either mean the art grants are underfunded or that the commission has to close its doors. And so money's fungible. The council amended the budget to include $2 million additional dollars. But those funds are not in some sort of trust account or lockbox or whatever. Again, I don't know the answers to these questions, but Director Crumbo is very concerned that he believes the Arts Commission is operating at a deficit, and that some of those funds may need to be used to fund some of those deficit operations, and that may mean not all the money is available. It's too soon to say that, but I think that's what he told the Oversight Committee today.
So, having been one of the council members that did this vote, we were very intentional about wanting this surplus funding to go to Metro Arts specifically. For the funds to be held up, and I can only speak for myself, for them to be held up for artists that are waiting for them to receive them is unacceptable. What will need to take place is to figure out if there is a deficit, and I'd love to hear that if there is one. We have other means to figure out how to fix it that are at our ready. And so that's a discussion for us to have as council members, which we will have. The idea, that we punish our creative class for what is going on with us internally. After 20 years of not funding this department is just so inappropriate. And I'm taking some personal license here. But if there's a deficit, Director Singh, can you speak to that deficit? I thought today when I listened to the meeting, I heard that it was $300,000 or something to that effect. And if that's the case, we have $2 million to give to artists. $300,000 is not enough to make me be overly concerned. But I'm going to let you speak to that because I believe that you would know if we have a deficit.
So we hired some staff at the end of October. So the salary, the budget has allocations for them for the whole year. So I expect there to be salary savings. And again, we are running the numbers. I don't have the final report of the salary savings yet. And so we are hoping that the salary savings will cover what was spent in consulting, because as we couldn't hire folks till, we tried to hire folks in April of last year, 23. We were told it was too close to the end of the fiscal year, and that because of the rate, COLA changes and the salary changes, we shouldn't hire anyone until July 1. When July 1 came around to hire folks, HR was backed up. By the time we were able to post the jobs and hire folks and get people in the door, it was November before we had staff in the door. I had to keep the department running for all those months. I had to rely on consultants and contractors to make the work happen. There was no other way to do it. And so some of these, again, this is where we need to work together as departments and figure out how this doesn't happen in the future.
Thank you much, Director Singh. I see that someone has come to the microphone.
Hey everyone, Krista Fote, Metro Arts incoming finance operations director. I just wanted to clarify that we're where we are with the financing right now. So as far as when it comes to salary savings, I don't think we're allowed to utilize salary savings for expenses like payroll, expenses, which includes Taylor Business, City Heart company that we utilize as temporary services, because it's basically funds that have already been supposed to be designated for salaries for our employees, staff. So you can't utilize that particular line item for an expense that's not related to the salaries of employees. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you very much. Is there, Ms. Vice Chair Vo, did you have a question? I feel like you were holding on to something.
Sorry, I just want to clarify too, because thank you, Director Dietz. So are you saying that because of the deficit, they would need, like, out of the operating budget, that's already been the 50% funded, that was in the operating budget for Metro Arts, and the $2 million that was possibly, like, it was approved by council, but depending on overall budget, the Metro Arts would have to utilize that, if it's even possible, to cover their deficit. And if not, it would be, the result would be choosing between closing Metro Arts or funding. Can you clarify? Because I just want to make sure I understand.
So I will ask Director Crumbo to supplement his explanation tomorrow or in the very near future. I am not the expert, Ms. Afate is, on what the funds can be used for, whether you can transfer out of one account to another account. That's a finance issue, it's not a legal issue. So I defer to the financial experts. What I heard today from Director Crumbo is he's very worried about this deficit, but he does not know how large it is at all. He doesn't know. And so it's going to take a few more weeks for the finance operation to get to the bottom and do a reconciliation of all these various accounts internal to arts. Some of these arts accounts are not visible to finance. The director, under the bylaws, has delegated authority to make certain awards and to spend certain funds without finance's approval or the money even necessarily going through an account at the Department of Finance. It's in the Arts Commission's accounts. And so part of what Director Crumbo is trying to do is to get 100% visibility into all the Arts Commission accounts to figure out what the lay of the land is. And he's got concerns. Any more information than that, I think will need to come from him.
Yes, Director Singh.
I just want to point out that there's like some confusion here about what can be moved into a different object code and not. So they're saying if there's a deficit, they might have to use the grant or the funding for programs to close the deficit. So already they're moving from one object code to another object code. So I don't see why you couldn't move from salary savings to contract, right? Like, so if you're moving it from funding sources to close the deficit, you should be able to move it from salary savings to deficit. So I feel like the definitions are slippery here, and I would love to get those clarifications too.
I think what we'll do is wait for Director Crumbo to email council in full. I will ask him to certainly email committee members and compile some data points from this evening, and also just to make things clear for council members that aren't here but have had questions. Everyone needs to be clear, because there's confusion for sure. We've had a lot of questions as well from our colleagues, and so as much information as we have that we can disseminate, the better.
Can I say one last thing too, in terms of this oversight committee, Chair Stiles? This is an ad hoc committee. Our intent and hope, I believe, is to make it a permanent committee of Metro Arts, of the commission, and to provide, to just have more detail for commissioners. We want that detail. We want to see more in terms of budgets and monthly financial reports. The same kind of things when I chaired the board of a local arts organization. Every month I received a very detailed, financial statement in which I could actually tell what went up and down each month. I think that as commissioners we want to see that, and we welcome that, and so that is what we're really hopeful. We take this responsibility so seriously, and we welcome that.
Thank you very much. To that end, I do have a question. That was a very nice spin that you just did, Heather. But my question is, so prior to this season that we're in right now, for those of you that have been on the Arts Commission, were there not questions about finance before? Was there not a need to have a budget committee and a desire to see financials every month? How suddenly do we need to see financials? Is it because we have more applicants and we have a need for more money and this has made things a little bit more hectic? What was the reason?
I don't know. I can, other people, I just started here, I'm new here. But I do think that in the past there were more, my understanding is there were more detailed financial statements made available to commissioners on a regular basis, and that has not been the case. What we receive just in board packets is pretty small, little bitty spreadsheet, just not very detailed at all. So those are questions, as we have a largely new commission who are trying to learn. We would like to see more of that. So no, there has not been a budget committee. And that is our recommendation, that this oversight committee become one, and that we do monthly receive those statements.
Fantastic. No, that answers my question. I appreciate it. Yes, Commissioner Cheek. I know you may have some institutional knowledge.
I've done this a couple of times. One of the things that I know when we were voting that we lacked, both at the first vote and the second vote, was specific information about the financial outcome of what we were doing. For example, in the past, when we were voting on grants to large organizations or the micro, we had spreadsheets where we could see the ballet. If they got $108,000 last year, this year our proposal is that we would fund them at $76,000. Or perhaps proposal B was that we would fund the ballet at $110,000. We saw none of that information this year. there was a lack of the financial details that it's unusual. We used to see numbers, and this year when we were voting, we had very few numbers in front of us. So we've lacked financial transparency, and I know that the current commission is very focused on making sure that we have that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cheek. Vice Chair Vo, okay, Councilmember Ewing, okay. With that, I would like to thank everyone that has come this evening. Director Dietz, thank you for being here. Director Tucker. I'm on time. I'm gonna let Elishaba be the last comment. It's okay. You be the last comment.
My comment is probably not. I just want to know, like, why there is so much turmoil over giving small amounts of money to poor artists who want to do work. I don't understand any of this process and why money is being held up in billions of dollars cities, but y'all throw money at these billion-dollar corporations to build things we don't even need, we can't even afford to go to. It just makes zero sense to me. $20, some of y'all in this room wipe your behinds with $20,000.
Ma'am.
I'm sorry, but it's just, I just want to know, like, why are we still doing this? That's all.
I appreciate your frustration. We are here to move forward and have a positive outcome. That is why we are actually here this evening, so that we can take information from tonight, information from December, the report that's going to be coming out next week. Thank you so much, Director Tucker, for that. I will definitely be at your meeting to hear those results. Commissioners are here. They're committed. They were in a meeting earlier today, starting to talk about this for over an hour, and they're here tonight for the 2 hours that we've been here. So we're seeing people making a commitment right now. I will say personally, to state on the record, not only have we underfunded Metro Arts, we have selected people in the past that don't understand arts, and that has led to a lot of the problems that we have right now. If you don't understand art on a basic level, it's really hard to make allocations for people. But I will say, we have selected new people that get it. And they're here right now. They're sitting here and they're committed to making this work. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting. I thank you all for being here. And we that are sitting here from the committee, we're committed. We are going to move this forward, and I look forward to working with all of you to make sure that we have a positive and healthy outcome, because our city is amazing and our arts community is astounding. So thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.